us on the map. Mr. Caruana leading the beat. Australia global rank 6. Feeling the heat like immortality.
So our third high level disease that we are going to look at in this course is dementia. Okay, my pop died from dementia, so it's in my genetics, it's in my family. My uncle also has early onset dementia currently, so it is very close to me. Seeing as it's the #1 killer at the moment for females and projected to overtake CVD as #1 for males, I thought it was probably the best one that we should be tackling here. So, deep dive in dementia. So what is dementia? Okay, so dementia is sort of like an umbrella term for a group of disorders that impair brain function. Okay, so basically it is degenerative in the brain and it slowly basically kills off brain cells and therefore bad things happen. So there's a progressive decline of cognitive function. It affects memory, which is sort of like one of the earlier signs that maybe it is setting in. Then obviously affects behaviours and then will affect daily function, okay? To the point where people then need to be basically monitored 24/7 because you don't know what they're going to do. So Alzheimer's is probably the one that you are most familiar with. It is the most common form of dementia, and there are other forms of dementia too, but Alzheimer's is the one that we will focus on. So it is a terminal neurodegenerative condition where the loss of brain cells eventually causes the body systems to shut down, okay? Because remember, your brain and the nervous system is responsible for signaling the whole rest of your body to do all of the things it needs to do. If you start losing those nervous system signals, then your body will stop doing the things it needs to do, okay? Ultimately, people forget that they need to do things, okay? And I say forget because it's not really a conscious thing that people do. It's simply because the brain is no longer sending signals to the body to do the things required. For example, you no longer get the signals to eat, okay? Or if you do ingest food because someone forces it to you, your stomach may not get the signal to digest the food, okay? You don't get the signal to hydrate anymore, all right? And these things in combination cause severe malnutrition, which is probably the leading way in which dementia will cause death. The second way that dementia will cause death is basically that your body forgets that it has 2 tubes in your throat, and one goes to your lungs and one goes to your stomach, and it forgets that it has a valve that it needs to control to make sure the food and the water go in the right spot. So what ends up happening is that the food and water that you do ingest actually goes into the lungs. This is called aspiration pneumonia, and therefore because people can no longer aspirate because their lungs are filled with stuff that shouldn't be there, they basically, for want of a better term, drown in their own body or the fluids that build up in their lungs. So that's number 2. If a person lives long enough and they get all the great care in the world, and so they're not malnutrition, they're not aspiration, eventually the cognitive decline gets to the point where the signals for the lungs to breathe and the heart to beat stop getting sent from the brain, and therefore they, die, unfortunately. It's a horrible disease because it's not just something sudden. It is very degenerative and it can take years and years and years. And over that time, you just see the person that you love just sort of fade away, all right? It's horrible, horrible. There's currently no cure for dementia, but they are making progress with medications that can slow the cognitive decline. And while we don't know specifically the causes of dementia, or we know that there's a distinct link between old age and dementia, especially Alzheimer's, there are some things that we can do as individuals throughout our life to hopefully offset or dissuade dementia and Alzheimer's from setting in, which we'll go through later in this video. So that's our what is dementia. Now we'll do some statistics. All right, so what does the data tell us about dementia that we know? Well, it's not good, okay? It's trending upwards, rates of incidence, prevalence, mortality, morbidity, it's all going up, okay? which is quite scary because if you look at data for other diseases over years, they go up for a little bit and then they come down again because we finally get on top of it. But this is not projected that we're going to get on top of it. It's actually projected to get worse. So it's trending upwards. It's projected to be more than double by 2065. So 2.5 times the rates actually, if you wanted the specific, not that you need to know it, but and I know that's a long time, 2065, that's like 40 years from now, right? But 40 years from now, I'm going to be, in between these two categories. So that's scary for me. All right. And if it's already the number one killer and over the next 40 years, it's going to, more than double, like nearly triple, that's crazy. Crazy statistics. Dementia places a massive healthcare burden because it's not an acute case. You don't just get dementia and then, bad things happen over the next week. It's years and years and years of care, all right? So in the 2024-2025 AIHW data, there were close to 28,000 hospitalizations purely for dementia. And all of those hospitalizations on average required 15 days of 24/7 care in hospital, okay? Let alone the care that they got after they left hospital, which is usually like 24/7 care in a aged care facility, or if they're lucky enough, have family around, but that means that family member can't work anymore, basically at home 24/7 to look after their loved one until it progresses further. And once again, increasing, okay? This is not going down, this is getting worse. So if we look at some actual numbers, like cases of incidence, so if you are under the age of 60, the rate of people being diagnosed with dementia is actually really low. It's just under 1 per 1,000 Australians, which is nothing, okay? But then you get up into a category between 75 and 79. All of a sudden it's jumped to 71 cases per 1,000. Then for 90 plus, it's 1 in 2, right? And then if it's going to like double or triple over the next 40 years, you can sort of see that 90 plus is going to be everyone almost, right? Crazy. I mean, it wouldn't be everyone, but scary. And as we've gone through before in the previous video, it is the current leading cause of death in Australia and still trending upwards. So not only is it the leading cause of death, it's going to get bigger and bigger and just be a huge burden for everyone. So that's our data. We're going to go next on to looking at some risk factors and protective factors for dementia. And a lot of that stuff is sort of not experimental, but like cancer, there's not certain hard and fast things that we know cause dementia, but these are the things that we know. Okay, so risk factors for dementia. We have health conditions, okay? So there is evidence to suggest that people who have, midlife health issues such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, overweight, obesity, diabetes, okay? All those things that lead to, CVD and cancer, well, there's good evidence to say that those things can also increase your risk of getting dementia and Alzheimer's. So lifestyle factors is our next one. So once again, general stuff here. Smoking, drinking, poor diet, physical inactivity, okay? Evidence to suggest that individuals who don't have healthy lifestyle factors do have higher risks of dementia and Alzheimer's. This is probably the first one, which is a little bit different and does have good evidence for it, okay? Mental and neurological health. So people that suffer from chronic depression, so that's like over a long period of time, or even more specific, brain injury and trauma, okay? So may not have depression at all, but, got concussion in playing league or something like that, all right? Those people have are highly correlated with dementia and Alzheimer's. So there's our first real major link as to something that happens in someone's life that can lead to the development of dementia and Alzheimer's. Fourth one, social isolation and feeling lonely, okay? And that sort of leads into cognitive stimulation down here. Untreated vision loss, so not able to process as much information. Exposure to air pollution. Lower education levels, so this is when you're young, but then lack of cognitive stimulation as you get older, okay? So think of these things that stimulate the brain, all right? So that's like social interaction, challenging yourself through learning new things even as you age. If you're not learning new things, doing daily like things that, your grandparents and maybe my grandparents did, or some of them did at least, daily crosswords. My grandma at the moment, she does the daily, the Wordle, and then there's another one. I'm not good with them anyway. But those types of things that stimulate brain activity, really good at protecting against dementia and Alzheimer's. So therefore, if you're not using your brain, so let's say that you retire, and then you just sit on a chair and you just watch TV all the time, you're not really thinking about things, and those types of people have higher risks of developing dementia and Alzheimer's. So I'll rub these off, and then we'll go through our protective factors. Okay, so our protective factors against dementia and Alzheimer's. So a lot of these things, once again, is the opposite, but to give you some context, physical activity. Okay, so obviously physical activity is good for the body, but we're mainly looking at that improved cardiovascular function and therefore improved blood flow. And if you're getting good, fresh, healthy blood to the brain continuously throughout your life, you are less likely to suffer from degenerative nature of dementia. Next one, I've got mental stimulation, so continuous lifelong learning, okay? I mentioned before, about my grandparents, but also things like learning languages and, learning new skills around the house, all can ward off the development of dementia. Engaging in your hobbies for lifelong time periods, challenging yourself mentally, crosswords, etc. What this is actually doing, it's building what they call mental reserve, okay? So therefore, if you happen to be diagnosed with dementia, we know that this is a degenerative disease, and if you have a larger mental reserve, it's actually going to delay how long dementia then becomes a fatal condition for that individual, okay? So people that have good mental reserve may live, another 20, 30 years of their life, providing they're the right age, of course, as opposed to declining rapidly. So the third one is social engagement, okay? So engaging in conversation, okay? Not only just general chit chat, but, conversation about the world, conversation about things you're interested in, all that stuff sparks so much mental activity. Volunteering, so not only are you talking with people about their lives and what's going on, but you're also helping out, and therefore, if you're volunteering, you're alleviating the burden that dementia is having on the healthcare system. So there's a double benefit there. Maintaining a healthy diet, delays cognitive delay, and once again, eating the rainbow. So making sure you're getting all your vitamins and minerals and, getting all the foods that your body needs to function optimally. And then obviously just finally maintaining your general health markers. So your blood pressure is good, your blood sugar levels or glucose is good, your weight is in a healthy weight range. You're getting adequate sleep every night, which a lot of people struggle with, especially as you get older. And you're managing your stress levels. Okay, all of those things can put significant fatigue on the brain and therefore can potentially lead to the development of dementia and Alzheimer's. So there are our risk and protective factors. And then the last thing we've got to go through in this video is for who and where in Australia dementia is changing. Okay, so the last part the syllabus makes us look at is for where and for whom is the data changing most, so populations and areas that are of concern. So the first one is age. We know that dementia and Alzheimer's is an age-related disease. I went through on the previous slides that the condition, rises from 1 in 1,000 cases to under 60 to 1 in 2 when you get to, 90 plus, right? However, that younger age category, which is less than 65, that is growing, okay? Because it used to be 0, all right? And under 60, it may be 1 in 1,000, but that's still a lot of Australians if you add us all up. And then because you're adding in an extra 5 years for the data that the AIHW goes through, the rate is increasing, okay? Now, so this is like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Is it increasing because people are literally getting dementia and Alzheimer's younger, or is the data increasing because we have better and earlier detection methods these days? So the people who would have easily been diagnosed with dementia at 80, maybe those people actually had it when they were 60, or they showed signs and markers of it when they were 60, but we just couldn't detect it, all right? So that's we don't know, okay? But it is a concern, all right? But also, because it's a concern, this could also be a good thing, because if we're able to detect it earlier, that means that we may be able to implement things that will not lead to cures, but this will drastically help us develop, pharmaceuticals and lifestyle habits and stuff that can ward off the degeneration of the brain cells. So the second one I want you guys to be aware of is females, okay? Once again, a little bit of a chicken and egg situation here. Females do have 1.4 times higher rates than males when you get into that like 85 and above category. Obviously, it does continue to rise disproportionately as age rises, okay? Because females do have longer life expectancy, all right? But is that also why females have higher rates? Do females have higher rates because genetically females suffer from dementia more? Or do they have higher rates because females genetically live longer, which is true, and therefore because dementia is an age-related disease, more females living longer means more females get dementia, okay? Once again, we don't know, but we do know that it is a concern for females. Now, this is a double-edged sword, and it's sort of going to lead into our next video in this series. Well, not in this series, but the next video, is that because females are they're major primary healthcare workers, but they're also the major informal carers, okay? So a lot of people that take on roles of carers and volunteers in the community, so like if people have dementia and they stay at home instead of going into an aged care facility because there's no places for them, the person that usually looks after them is female. Generally, statistically speaking, I think it's like 76% of all informal carers are, oh yeah, I wrote it down, good for me. They're all female, right? If those females, so 76% of all carers are females, and those people have a much higher chance of getting dementia themselves, you can see how this is going to compound and sort of snowball, because all of a sudden you've got people with dementia and they're being cared for by females, and then all of a sudden everyone gets older, and now the carers themselves are all getting dementia as well, and then they need carers. Well, who's going to look after them? All right, so it's going to get worse, and I'm going to touch on that down here. So finally, the aged care system itself, all right? So because there are growing cases, it's going to directly burden and impact on the aged care system. Not everyone actually has a family situation where you can have someone stay at home and look after somebody who has dementia and Alzheimer's. And remember, because it's not an acute disease, you could be looking after that person for years and years, all right? As their primary care, helping them, reminding them and helping them to eat, cook, sleep, drink water, change your clothes, bath them, it's full on. It is a full on job, okay? And it's very, very taxing on the people that have to care for those people, which is why the aged care system is fantastic. However, because the aged care system is drastically, at the moment, they are understaffed. There's not enough infrastructure. There's actually like physically not enough places for people who require aged care to go. We're already in a crisis and a shortage. And because we've looked previously at the numbers of people suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's is only going to get worse as our life expectancy keeps going up, this situation is going to get worse. Like, there are significantly more people that need beds and care than carers and beds, all right? I don't know, it sounds simple. Oh, we'll just build more aged care facilities. Yeah, great. But who's going to pay for that, all right? The government is trying to pay for it, but most of the time, and if you look around in our local area, there are a significant number of aged care facilities, and while some of them are subsidised by government, a lot of them are privately owned because the government just doesn't have enough money to build all the infrastructure and hire all the people, but private companies do. And then because it's privatized, there's money involved, and then people start making profits, off people's sick loved ones. And anyway, it's going to be messy, okay? By the time I'm an old person, and touch wood, I don't get dementia, but by the time I'm requiring care, there may not even be a spot for care, okay? And, who knows what's going to happen. So I'll just read this out. So growing cases directly burden an impact on the aged care system. Primary healthcare workers, they all need training, specialised training in dementia as well. They need more places, more beds, etc. Lack of infrastructure in workers currently, and it's only going to get worse as the numbers keep rising, unfortunately. That finishes off our video on dementia, and that actually is a really nice segue into our next video, which is where we look at healthcare in Australia and looking at the ageing population specifically. Thanks.